Welcome back to our S.O.A.P videos in the Gospel of Luke. Thanks for joining us. This is we're glad that you're here, and we've got 2 weeks left in Luke.
We're getting there.
Yeah, 17 weeks. This is week 16. Only 1 more week left, which means we're in the last few chapters. Which means you probably know the story.
Right.
Yeah,
so no spoilers.
No spoilers.
Right.
But we're picking up Thursday night after Passover, right?
Right.
And so...
Right, so Last Supper, and in fact, we're even kind of past that part.
Yeah, that was last week.
Right, because last week we saw a huge shift where for the past 3, 4, 5 weeks, Luke was all about teaching, teaching, and then last week it shifted, and it was really funny because he was in the temple every day teaching, and you're like all day.
Right.
We have no idea what he taught. It doesn't say it at all.
Not from Luke anyway.
Yeah, right, exactly. But Jesus was focused on, or Luke focused on end times.
Yeah.
And I think it was 21. It was a whole chapter just on end times and what was going to happen. And we ended last week with Jesus and the 12 starting out to the Mount of Olives for the Thursday night and
right. So
night.
They've left the upper room. They've had the Passover. Judas is already gone.
Yeah, so 11, right?
Right. And so then Jesus and the 11 are walking out to the Garden of Gethsemane.
Right.
And so that's where we're picking up here.
Right. And this week we see really all the events playing out.
Yeah.
I think we do everything except his death. We were talking about, which obviously is a big part.
Right.
But there's a lot of things, and I think this is an overstatement. But I think everything that we learn this week, we already knew before. Right? There's not a lot of new information. I knew. Did you see him? No. Did you see him shift?
I was just listening.
Right. So there's a bunch of things, right? I mean, Jesus is betrayed by Judas, right? Hasn't happened yet, but at the Last Supper, told him it was going to happen, right? And Judas left last week. And I say last week, right? In Jesus' time, a couple hours ago,
right? Yeah.
They asked, "Hey, do we need swords?"
Right.
Now they're going to be using the swords, so yeah, they did need them. Jesus says all throughout the New Testament, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And they missed it.
Here it is.
Even last week, he told them, I think for the first time, that Satan has asked permission to sift you like wheat. Yeah. So pray. And I've prayed for you. Yeah. And then this week we'll see where Jesus tells his disciples to pray so they will not fall into temptation.
Yep.
Kind of a match there. Jesus is taken to the high priest's house, and Peter, tells Peter that Peter's going to deny him 3 times. Yep. And, Peter's like,
"No, I won't."
Yep, no, I won't, exactly. And he looks directly at him when it happens.
Oh, man.
How do you think what was that look?
Yeah.
Right? Was it, told you so?
Yeah.
Or was it a look of disgust? And I don't think it was a look of disgust, but yeah, what was that look?
I've always pictured just this almost sad, glare is too strong of a word, right? Just this sad, as he looks out across the courtyard.
Right. I mean, he's involved with the discussion. He's at the high priest's house. You have to imagine there's a bunch of guards around. It's very chaotic. I get it. He's Jesus.
Yeah.
But it happens.
But still, yeah.
He turns.
And he just looks across,
makes that eye contact.
And Peter looks up, and it's just like, oh, man.
I did. He told me I was going to do it.
Yeah.
And it happened.
So what's the soundtrack behind there, right? Because there's you almost think in a movie. Right? As you're thinking of that, all of a sudden, maybe the soundtrack just like gets really, really, really loud and da 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 da, or it's just like, and it's just
crashes down. Well, then I think the next line is he wept bitterly.
Yeah,
right. He got it.
Ran.
And I think that's maybe silence right there, where it's just him weeping.
Yeah, I don't know where he ran, but it says he ran out and wept bitterly. Sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. How many, just everything flashing before his eyes. Just, I was going to be so strong.
Right. I knew it. I had it.
Yep.
I promised. He told me, no way. And it happened.
And now it's over.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, for Peter especially, at that moment, for him,
it's
as
all
far as
totally
as he was concerned, it was over.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's why I love the restoration passage in John 21 so much.
Right, which doesn't really show up in Luke.
No,
right?
not at all.
You have to go other places. And I talk about Peter a little bit too. So Jesus is brought before a whole bunch of people, has a whole bunch of, I don't know if trials is the right word, but what we would call trials. So the high priest, he's brought before and he's condemned, and he's already been condemned. They seem to have taken a vote beforehand, and he's done from their standpoint.
There wasn't anything he was going to be able to say or not say that was going to change their mind.
So then he gets taken in front of Pontius Pilate, who was Roman, so a whole different, right? There's a Roman occupation. Yeah. So in order for Jesus to be killed, the Jews could not make that determination. They could make their recommendation, but not the determination. Have to take it to Rome. Pontius Pilate, he gets to kick it up a notch himself. I'm sure he felt relieved about it, right? So he sends it to who we call King Herod, who wasn't necessarily a true king, but a regional king maybe. Puppet king's a good one.
Which, by the way, Luke is the only one who mentions Herod. None of the other Gospels mention this one, and so it's that harmony that we've been talking about.
Right. Yeah, getting all of them together to get that complete story.
Herod was one of the 6. You mentioned several trials. There were actually 6 trials or interviews. 3 with the Jews, and then Herod Pilate.
Right, because Herod doesn't really seem to do much. Herod, hey, I don't find anything wrong with him, send him back.
Right.
Type of deal.
Yeah, he used it as a... what he really wanted was he wanted a miracle. He wanted, this is the Jesus I've heard so much about. Yeah. Play a trick for me.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Perform, basically. Perform.
Yep. Let's see what you got.
And he wouldn't do it, so he just beat him up a little bit, send him back. I don't want him.
Right. So then we have the whole scene with Pilate and the crowd. Mm-hmm. And then we have his crucifixion, which it stops just before the crucifixion. This week stops just before it. Yeah. So there's a lot there. I don't mean to gloss over any of this part. I mean, if you're going to read anything slow, this is a great week to read slowly and thoroughly and try to figure out what's going on. But was there a couple things that stood out for you?
Well, I really like there are certain things that Luke brings out that the other gospel writers don't. Right, so Herod is one of those things, right, or one of those instances. Luke is the one, if I remember correctly. Luke is the one who mentions that the sweat when Jesus was praying was like drops of blood.
So Dr. Luke.
Dr. Luke, right? Yeah. And it would be some time later before we find out that yes, the capillaries that we're going through can burst under stress and the amount of stress that Jesus was under, and so there probably was blood coming out of his pores.
Yeah, Roman crucifixion is supposed to be horrific,
right?
And if they're speaking of stress,
yeah. So I think Luke is the only one who mentions that. Just little details. I really like the little details. Earlier you mentioned the swords, right?
Right.
And Luke is
I think they had 2, right? We have 2. That's
we have
enough.
2 swords. That's enough. Because Peter's getting ready to get an army. We've only got 2. It's enough. That's not what's
protection.
So they go to Gethsemane. They sleep. He's praying. Which, by the way, only John records.
Like the long
prayer, yeah.
Well, John's prayer,
John
too.
17. Yeah, John 17. Exactly. That is the prayer in Gethsemane that the others
take this cup.
So Luke doesn't say who. We have to look at the other gospel to see that it was Peter who chopped off this guy's ear, right? But I love the detail. We've talked about this off camera. I love the detail that he cut off his right ear.
Right.
Okay. And so, assuming that he's facing him,
so if I'm facing you like this, my right ear's on this side,
right? So if I were holding the sword and I'm slashing just to get your right ear would be
really hard, wouldn't it?
It seems like it would be really hard. So I wonder if maybe he was left-handed.
Yep.
Right. And it makes me think of my brother.
Josh, I have no part of this.
It was not planned. not in a bad way, not in a nasty way, but he was sticking up for Jesus. Right. He was trying to protect Jesus. Right.
Yeah, he saw it as his job too.
He saw it as
exactly.
And we've seen the apostles sort of acting as bodyguards in the past, right? Bouncers, and it's like, no,
to
you're
children,
not on the list.
But now,
to children.
Now they upped it a notch.
Children and slaves apparently are not. But he pulls this sword, and he chops off his right ear, and just sort of reminds me my brother when he gets passionate about stuff, and he's a martial artist, and that's just sort of his thing, and he would have done the exact same thing, except he wouldn't have missed and just gotten the ear.
Yeah.
This guy would have been gone.
So is your brother left-handed?
My brother is left-handed, and that's what sort of makes this connection all together, right?
Yeah. Nice.
So, but then Jesus says basically that's enough. Right. It's not just that two swords are enough, but this whole thing is enough. This whole line of thinking is enough. Right. This whole play is enough. And he heals the man's ear.
Which is kind of like an after thing in there, right? Cuts the ear off, and Jesus heals it, and we move forward.
Right. Yeah. The Dr. Luke.
Yeah. Right.
He's got all of this really cool detail. Let's see here. Only Luke mentions Herod. That was another thing. And then I think it's only Luke who really details out this conversation that Jesus had while on the cross with the criminals.
Right. So there's two others.
Yeah.
Or three people total.
So some of the other Gospels, we find that it says that they mocked him. Okay, they were both mocking him, probably early on. But Luke is the one who really draws that out a little bit. Two other criminals, and the soldiers were mocking him, and one of the criminals, aren't you the Christ? Save yourself and save us. And the other, verse 40, the other rebuked him, saying, don't you fear God? Right. Since you are under the same sentence of condemnation, hello, you're hanging here too, right? And we rightly so, for we are getting what we deserve for what we did. But this man has done nothing wrong. And then he looks over at Jesus and he says, remember me when you come into your kingdom.
Right. Is that when he comes back with, I tell you today you'll be in paradise?
Today you will be with me in paradise.
Yeah.
And that's just, talk about a deathbed conversion, right?
Yeah,
that's as close as you can get.
Exactly.
And and that really brings us to the end of our reading for this week. And I love that ending right there. Jesus hadn't died yet. They're still under the law, all of that. But Jesus says, you know what?
So how long was he on the cross? Was it 6 in the morning or later than that?
9. Yeah, about 9 in the morning.
So
a
good 3 hours.
Well, at this point, right? And then he doesn't die until 3 o'clock.
Okay.
Right. And then he comes down after that.
Okay, so 6 hours.
So 6 hours of living on the cross.
Right. Which is weird, but they're going to have conversations.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to mock each other. They're going to...
Well, and it's very interesting, and this sort of gets off of Luke here, but it's very interesting that Barabbas, the one who was let go, was called a mercenary, right? Possibly a murderer.
Right.
It may have been that these 3 guys, Barabbas and these other 2, were part of the same band and were supposed to be crucified together. Mm. So not only did Jesus take Barabbas' place, but then this guy is like, man, we belong here.
Right.
Sort of like we saw, it was a couple weeks ago, God be merciful to me, a sinner, the tax collector. I know I need it.
Right.
Right. And that's the attitude that God's looking for. I know
exactly.
I need it.
It's a heart thing.
Yeah.
We've seen it time and time again.
Yeah. I've just really always been drawn to that account with the criminals.
Right. So I've noticed, for the past couple of weeks, we've talked about Peter denial, and we've brought it up a couple times. And last week, Jesus tells Peter, hey, you're going to deny me 3 times before the rooster crows. And again, it was only a couple hours later, or a number of hours later. But like you said, Peter was probably the unnamed disciple that cuts off the ear of the high priest. Then
the high priest servant.
The high priest servant.
Yeah,
not the high priest, the servant.
Yeah.
And then where do they go? They go to the high priest's house,
yeah.
right? So they take Jesus to the high priest, and Peter follows along, and Peter has to be going, uh-oh. I just damaged some of his property.
Right.
So there's fires. It must have been a cold night. People are sitting around fires. It had to be the talk. Hey, there was swordplay.
Yeah.
Something's going on. Hey, weren't you the guy that was there? Nope, not me. You can see it happening, and I can definitely see it happening.
He's looking around like,
it's just denial. Me? No, I'm not a Galilean. No, I'm from South. Yeah. And then
it's a little girl, right? The little servant girl,
Yeah, it's like, shut up. Shh.
Just warming my hands. Right.
Yeah, but it looked like the foreigner. They were looking for somebody.
Yep.
And he certainly could have been in deep trouble if he really was the one identified as not destruction of property, but of harming a person.
There was no proof.
Right, because it was healed.
He was healed.
Right, but
what are they going to do?
But he didn't know that.
He
knew that.
He did it, right? He did it, and then, like you said, he walked right into the Shark Tank, right?
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of neat. Yeah. So I think that's about it for this week.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of stuff, obviously, and we don't want to gloss over it. It's very deep, this stuff in here. So, one more week, and then we will move on to the book of Isaiah. Actually, is going to start here in a couple of weeks.
Right. Go back to the Old Testament.
Yeah, the end of Isaiah. Here's the question. So, what is your favorite part of the Passion Week or the crucifixion story? I mean, and I know Jesus died for my sins. Okay, I get that. That's the. But as far as what are those things that really grab your heart, really grab your mind?
Yeah, what sticks out when you read it, and even what sticks out this time,
yeah,
which could be different than before.
Right. Yeah, we'd love to hear that, and we appreciate you listening. So come back next week, and we will finish the story. Man, it's a good thing it doesn't end on a cross. And see a few more things that Dr. Luke has to say, and then we'll move on from there. All right, thanks for being here.